Well, we're finally here. The last movie in the series so far, Jurassic World Dominion. And of course we have to talk about inaccuracies. But as for this movie, well, honestly, I think it's overhated, I do. And I think it's kind of going to be like Jurassic Park 3 with time, where people are going to soften up on it. I thought it had its moments. I do think the extended cut is much better. And it could have been worse. There were things that I definitely didn't like and won't ever like. The final fight between the Rex and the Giga was just disgusting. I hated how that was handled. But beyond that, everything else, I mean, it was okay. Maybe dial back the social commentary, with Dodson obviously being an allegory for big tech. But, you know, outside of that, it was an okay film. Like, it was a fun ride. Had some cool dinosaurs, and speaking of cool dinosaurs, man, the one thing this movie did was give us more premieres for new dinosaurs than any other film in the entire franchise. Now, seriously, do you know how many dinosaurs appear in this movie that never appeared before? 13. 13 dinosaurs to work with. Now, some of them did appear in extended media, but we're talking just about the films. And in terms of that, that's a lot. So as a result, I feel like by the end of this recording, this video is going to turn out to be longer than any other part in this entire series. Some have asked me if I'm going to keep doing this with other elements of the Jurassic Park franchise, such as Camp Cretaceous. And, yeah, you know, I might as well keep it going. So, Camp Cretaceous I think I'll cover next. Beyond that, though, I'm not sure. We'll see, because there are some video games and things like that I could talk about. But then things start getting weird, because some video game portrayals are just out of left field. But we'll see how it goes. Either way, though, until the next Jurassic Park film, which apparently is in the works, this will be the last movie we talk about. Same rules apply. No repeats, but, I mean, if there were repeats, this would take forever. These are Jurassic World Dominion dinosaurs, rated from least to most accurate. The Giganotosaurus. Some people call it Giganotosaurus, but in any event, oh my god! Can we talk about this animal? Like, seriously? How did you screw this up this bad? The Giga has been requested to appear in the franchise for a long time, and outside of the comics and some games, it hasn't appeared in the main movies until now. It's supposed to be the main villain dinosaur, but they got just a bit carried away with designing this animal. And the worst part is that in Dominion, we can't even claim that this is because of cloning issues, because there was that prequel shorts that showed the Giga back in the Cretaceous period, and it looked the same. Wrong! This particular animal has these dragon-like ridges that run vertically on the top of the forehead. It's also covered with sharp projections that start at the area near its neck and travel downward. It's got spikes, just all over the place, which is not something that can be attributable to the actual animal. The actual Gigas probably never looked like that at all. Their teeth are also wrong. They're more like crocodile teeth. Its behavior doesn't make any sense, based on what we know. The Gigas were built for speed. They were very narrow, so they could probably run faster than, say, a T-Rex. But a T-Rex was built much more for a one-on-one fight. It was a brawler, very bulky. So the Giga, first of all, never seems to use its speed element at all during the film. It lumbers around like, well, a classic portrayal of a dinosaur. And in terms of it fighting a Rex... Okay, look, I have nothing against Giganotosaurus, but I don't think in a one-on-one fight it would actually be this dominant against a Rex. Especially not one that has a lot of fighting experience like Rexy does. And just from a scripting perspective, am I the only one who's just over the fact that Rexy always seems to need help beating these enemies? Like, the Indominus fight not only was way, way better in terms of entertainment value, but at least there it made sense, because the Indominus was a hybrid designed to be a weapon, so I totally get why she would need Blue's help, but this is just a regular Giga. I mean, obviously not because of the spikes, but still, like, I have no idea why she needed help against this thing. Then again, in the prequel short, why was the Giga even in that territory? Gigas lived in South America, Rexus lived in North. Like, I suppose it's not impossible for one to travel that far up, but why? And where? And how? And just... I hated the way they handled the Giga. I really did. Like, the Spinosaurus had some inaccuracies, but at least it was an entertaining animal. The Giga just seems to be wasted. Pretty much every conceivable way. And yeah, the spikes, seriously. Why did you add those? Those aren't remotely right. Why would you do that? Atrociraptor. I almost put these below Giga, but the Giga annoyed me more. And in terms of the Atrociraptors, I mean, honestly, they have the same exact problem that Velociraptors do in the franchise. They're just too big. Also, they don't have feathers, but, you know, what else is new? The original Atrociraptor would have only been about half a meter, 1.6 feet. But these are almost exactly like the Jurassic Park version of Velociraptor. They're about 2 meters tall, 4 meters long, weighing nearly 500 pounds. Like, no, the original only weighed about 33 pounds. What? No, you did it again. Why would you do this again? The thing that frustrates me the most in this instance is that, as I've said throughout this entire series, we've found other animals that can stand in for the portrayal of the Velociraptor in the Jurassic Park franchise, like Utah Raptor or Dakota Raptor. And yet, for Dominion, they went with Atrociraptor and scaled it up to an extreme degree again! Why? Why not pick, like, Dakota Raptor or something? Why not pick an animal that has the size you're looking for? They did exist! You don't have to fake it! I don't understand. Why? Quetzalcoatlus. Another animal that people have been asking for. Debatably the largest pterosaur ever, and yeah, not a dinosaur, flying reptile, but whatever, you'd be mad if I didn't talk about this problem. The Quetzal, well, in terms of overall shape and appearance, it's actually pretty spot on. It has some pycnofibers, it has the little head crest. I mean, it actually doesn't look that bad in terms of overall shape. It's a pretty serviceable render of a Quetzalcoatlus, so no issues with it there. So what's the problem with it? The size. I don't know what you expected, but in this case, man, I don't know how they had the nerve to do this. I mean, as I just said, the Quetzals were known for being huge, but not this huge. The original animal would have had a wingspan of about 33 feet, 10 meters. Okay, so pretty big, not gonna lie. But this animal, well, it's actually possible to gauge its exact wingspan and know for sure that it is way too big. And the reason I say this is because we have a precise comparison because of the plane. That is a real airplane. And I talk about airplanes over on my other channel, History in the Dark, especially historical ones. That is a Fairchild C-119 flying boxcar, an American military transport aircraft, developed from the World War II era Fairchild C-82 packet. A good choice, since many of those are actually still in flying condition. They were good planes, so I don't mind its presence in the movie. But the thing about the flying boxcar, like most planes, it has a pretty exact wingspan, because they're built to a certain standard. Therefore, we know how big it is. The wingspan of a C-119 is about 109 feet, 3 inches, 33.30 meters. Not the largest planes, but still pretty big. And this Quetzal is clearly almost as big as the plane! The sheer lunacy on display with this scene is just insurmountable. Why not just pick a smaller type of plane? More in line with what the Quetzal was. I mean, that would still be pretty scary. They were still really big, but no. You picked a giant cargo plane and was like, well, we have to make sure the audience knows that these animals are really big, so let's just make it enormous. It's the Mosasaur all over again. Why did you do that? You know, they could have fixed it and still made it a really intense scene by just having 2 or 3 Quetzals. I mean, that'd be pretty scary. 2 or 3 of those giants? I mean, Come on now, but no, you had to go with the one big one and be wholly inaccurate about it. That's great, guys. Pyroraptor. We're getting into more middle of the road here with this one because this animal has some significant benefits and bonus points because look at all those fantastical feathers. I'm sure if you've been watching this series and saw the first one where I said I'm not going to talk about the feathers, we're waiting for me to talk about this because yes, they went out of their way to add a whole bunch of feathers to the Pyroraptor. And yeah, it probably did have those. That's pretty cool to see an actual feathered dinosaur. It's not completely accurate, as this creature is a bit too big. Again, I don't know why that keeps happening, though not as too big as the Velosa or Atrociraptors, so we'll give it some leeway in that regard. And honestly, that's pretty much the only major issue with them. I'm sure some of you are going to point out, yeah, but what about the snow and swimming thing? Okay, listen to me. I am over that complaint with the movie. Because especially more recently, it has been shown that dinosaurs could actually handle the cold. Like, pretty well. Some dwelled in it and thrived in it. So the notion of them being able to handle it is not outside the realm of possibilities. I thought it was actually a very good way of portraying the adaptability of dinosaurs. Contrary to popular opinion, even people who think they're in the know, dinosaurs did not just have to stay in warm climates all the time. Some species sure did, but dinosaurs were like modern mammals. There were a bunch of different ones, some adaptable to certain environments. So them being able to handle the snow is not outside the realm of possibilities. As for the swimming angle, well, that's again very theoretical, though dinosaurs could probably definitely swim, especially the lighter ones like Pyroraptor. Swim this well, I'm not sure about, but they probably could. As for doing it in a frozen lake, that might be a bit more ill-advised. But hey, it was a pretty intense scene, so I'll give some creative liberties there. The point is, I don't consider the snow element as big of an issue with the animal as everyone else seems to. Because people are still stuck in the old school portrayal of dinosaurs where they were big, dumpy lizards who could only handle warm climates because they were cold-blooded, etc., when in reality modern research shows that this is likely not the case. It's got feathers though, guys! Pretty red feathers, I mean, come on! Look at that! Therizinosaurus. Guys! More feathers! The feather people are so happy! And the Dominion portrayal of Therizinosaurus isn't too off from what we think of the animal. The walk is wrong. They would have walked with a more vertical gait rather than a horizontal one, and this animal's a bit too skinny, but I'm going to defend that element on the pure basis that this animal is blind. Not because it's paleontologically accurate, but the film makes it clear that this animal has severe cataracts. I thought it was actually pretty interesting in the movie to add an animal with an actual handicap, which doesn't really affect the animal in terms of an accurate portrayal, because dinosaurs probably did suffer from something like this. The notion of one being born blind or having cataracts isn't outside the realm of possibilities. So one could say that it's skinny because, well, it's constantly stressed out for one, and it might have more issues finding food because, again, it's blind. Also, again, hey! Feathers! Dimetrodon. Looky! Another non-dinosaur on the list, as this is a synapsid that existed in the early Permian period, and has more in common with modern mammals than dinosaurs. People have been asking for this creature for a long time, as Dimetrodon is one of the most famous non-dinosaurs, and some people actually just call it a dinosaur, and they're wrong. Stop doing that! But it was nice to see them. It was. However, they have some problems, and I almost put them lower than Therizinosaurus, but some of the issues I was like, let's just go with it. It's hard to place some of these. Overall, they look very, very similar, actually. They look good. They look like Dimetrodon. Their only major issue is that they are more reptilian than mammalian in their portrayal. They have a shorter head, and they have osteoderms like crocodiles, and the skin in the sail is a bit more pronounced than in the original. It's really the osteoderms that are the problem. They probably wouldn't have had those because they aren't that closely related to crocodiles. Those are reptiles. Dimetrodon's more like mammals. They probably added those to make them look cooler, and I mean, whatever. It was just nice to see them, and in terms of their walk, their shape, I mean, they're not that far off. So, yeah. Dimetrodon's here, aren't you? Aren't you thrilled? Aren't you thrilled, Dimetrodon fans? Are you happy now? Microceratus. This is one of those ones where if you blink, you would have missed it, as they didn't have much screen time, but they were in the movie. These animals were pretty small, historically speaking, and the clones again aren't quite right. They had an oversized head with an upward-oriented frill, and eyes that were further up the skull than they should be. But, outside of those nitpicks, they're fine. No, seriously, they're just fine. They're fine, little baby ceratopsians. Could be a little better, but alright for the most part. Now, Ceratops. Speaking of ceratopsians, here's another brand new ceratopsian that isn't super inaccurate, all things considered. In fact, they're pretty close. The only major differences between these and the originals are the shrink-wrapped frill holes, which is common enough on Jurassic Park portrayals of ceratopsians. They also have sharper horns, and those elephant feet that people keep mentioning that I keep forgetting to mention, and yeah, the elephant feet. They didn't have elephant feet. That's wrong. Their bodies are also a bit too bulky, but whatever at this point. Outside of those issues, they're pretty spot on. I don't have much more to say about them. Moros. These are interesting, because, okay, I've been saying this whole time, pretty much, that with every issue, the animals are too big, right? I mean, how often have I said this animal is too big in this very video? Well, Moros is too small. Go figure. Not by a whole heck of a lot, but they are smaller, though it is arguable in this case that they could be juveniles. But regardless, these particular animals are portrayed as being about the size of ducks. They do have feathers, though, which is nice. I mean, outside of that, that's really all you can say. They're just a bit too small. Lystrosaurus. Look at the baby. Look at the baby. I don't know, something about these little things is kind of cute. And honestly, there isn't really much that I can see that's wrong with these, believe it or not. No, seriously, Dominion gives me so much to work with that in this case, and in all future cases, they look fine. No, seriously, I don't really have an issue with these to any significant extent. They're about the right size, they're about the right shape, they look like the actual animal. These are also not dinosaurs either, just so we're clear. These are therapsids. Some people don't know that, but yes, these are more closely related to Dimetrodon, and, well, mammals than dinosaurs. But yeah, that's just a fun fact, not really an accuracy issue. I mean, they're fine. Oviraptor. Almost forgot about these, actually, not gonna lie. But yes, the Oviraptor does appear in the movie, and I don't have a whole lot to say about them. They have feathers. Look at the feathers. Look at the pretty white feathers. And they're pretty alright, all things considered. They have a unique situation. A pretty rare situation, actually. I put them so high on the list because, while they do have pronated wrists, I can tell, which is a problem, but, you know, whatever, I don't even care anymore about the wrists. I really am over it. But the clones are exactly the correct size. No, seriously, they are spot on in terms of their exact size ratio compared with the prehistoric counterparts, which is nearly unheard of. Usually, either the clones are too big or too small, one of the two. This time, however, the Oviraptor is exact. So, props? Dreadnoughtus. Big Chungus. Another one people kept asking for, and yeah, it's here, though not for very long. And as a result, it's pretty impossible to argue against the portrayal. They look fine. Yep. They sure look fine. It has the typical sauropod's bulky stature, a thick neck, which would rise up but not rise up too far. The only inaccuracy I can see with them is that these animals chew their food. Again, which is a problem with the apatosaurs and the brachiosaurs. They probably didn't chew, but yeah, that's so minor, it's not even worth it. Iguanodon. Man, I'm convinced most of you didn't even know Iguanodon was in the movie. Purely because it is just nearly impossible to see most of the time. It appeared in the prequel role, yeah, that was a thing. But outside of that, most of the images I can find of it are like in the background in like a group, and it's just hard to pick them out. Also, in the pre-roll, how is it there? These are these were from Europe. Wait, how is it with a Tyrannosaur and a Giganotosaurus? Like, oh! If you're gonna do a flashback to actual prehistoric times, you better make sure it's actually accurate. Bare minimum, have dinosaurs that would have existed in the same region, also at the same time, because Iguanodon was early Cretaceous. T-Rex is late Cretaceous. Do you see the problem here? Ugh. In terms of their actual appearance, though, I actually can't say anything bad about them. Now, seriously, this might be one of the more accurate interpretations of Iguanodon I've seen lately. I've never really had an issue with how they've handled it. They're pretty spot in pretty much every conceivable regard. They have the front thumb spike thing going on. The only problem I can say is that there's a bit of shrink wrapping on their skull. That's like the worst issue. And if that's the worst, I mean, they didn't do a bad job. And with that, a special thank you goes to my apex predators, Arthur Roy, Metal for Life Guy, and Dr. Racer78. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.